Greetings collectors and welcome to another Bossk's Bounty video and welcome to episode 224 of Ask Boss Bounty. This is the weekly Q&A series that drops every Sunday where I take your questions and do my best to answer them. So if you do have a question for next week's episode and you want to be featured in the video, be sure to leave that question in the comment section of this video and hopefully you'll be featured next week. With all that being said, it's been quite a week for TVC. We've had the HasLab announcement, so as you can imagine, a fair few of the questions in this week's episode are going to be centered around the HasLab and hopefully what's to come out of that. But if you do happen to enjoy the video, hit the like button down below and subscribe if you are new, and let's get straight into it. The usual gamers, 3242 says, hey boss, congrats on 7 years. My question for next week is, with the official announcement of the Cantina HasLab and the 2024-2025 return of Tatooine, I've been seeing a lot of excitement from the OT collectors, which you guys deserve for finally getting a set you've waited so long for, and doom and gloom from the Facebook and Reddit groups about the state of the line from some of the PT and modern media collectors like myself. Obviously we don't have access to financials, but you and some of the other big names seem to have your finger on the pulse of everything. Do you think the state of the line is okay given the HasLab announcement, or do you think the meh year that we've had with pipeline reveals, not counting the new OT mains announced, is indicative of a downward trend? I'm still hoping next year they re-release or focus a little bit on Revenge of the Sith since it's a 20th anniversary, but as the days and announcements roll in, I'm starting to prepare myself for disappointment. Well, yeah, I mean, there's a couple of things to dive into regarding your question, buddy, and you know, please don't be offended by my answer. I'm going to try and explain it as best I can, because I want to focus a little bit on, you know, where you're saying about the excitement around the OT collectors, which of course they're going to be really excited for. But I think when you're saying, you know, when you say you guys deserve it for finally getting a set you've waited for, and perhaps the PT and new media collectors are doom and gloom and things like that, I think people like to pigeonhole people a little bit. And if people think of me as like somebody that just wants OT, that can't be further from the truth. You know, I tend to get everything in this line because obviously I love 3.75, I love the vintage collection, and of course I review all the figures as well. That does help. But you know, I want figures from Rogue One, Andor, Ahsoka, The Mandalorian. There's a few shows from new media that I'm not overly keen on. I want figures from the Bad Batch, things like that. But of course, part of me still wants figures and vehicles and creatures and things like that from what I grew up with, which is the original trilogy. So of course I'm going to be ecstatic about a HasLab that is based on the original trilogy, and of course, you know, new versions of the main characters that we've always wanted. But yeah, I'm not too sure I like being pigeonholed, if you know what I mean, about being just an OT collector. And you know, I feel sorry for people if they do feel doom and gloom around there not being too much prequel trilogy. I absolutely love the prequel trilogy. I'd love more from Revenge of the Sith. I was really jealous of the Black Series getting the Slave Anakin figure. That's one that I would love for them to do in the vintage collection. So yeah, I think with the TVC community at the moment, there is a definite sort of split, which is not healthy considering we're all supposed to be pulling in the same direction, because you know, the Black Series collectors don't need to fight for their line, but we certainly do. We have to fight for what we want, and unfortunately it does seem that there's like a little bit of a split here between people that feel that OT collectors go on and on about what they want and forget about the PT. If you take last year as an example, we got just one original trilogy all newly tooled figure, and that was Admiral Piet, and of course they can do lots of things with that figure, give us other characters, but one newly tooled figure. Everything else was either a reissue like the ATST or a kit bash. Of course we got the Endor bunker and things like that, but in terms of figures, they're all kit bashes and whatever. All of the new tooling budget did go towards new media figures, from whether that's the Mandalorian, and obviously with this year we've had Ahsoka figures, Rebels figures, things like that. Now of course I am starting to ramble a bit, and I do apologise for that, but I'm trying to sort of put across my opinions on this, and I just feel it's not healthy for the community to have a split, and I think we should all pull together and, you know, push TVC forwards. Of course, not everybody is going to get everything they want. It's just impossible. There is a finite budget for new tooling. But I think to say that the new media hasn't had its fair share is wrong. I think they have, especially from a new tooling point of view, because often a new character that we've never had before in any media, like Morgan Elsbeth, for example, does need all new tooling. But of course, when we look at the prequel trilogy, yes, there is a bit of a famine around there. And I can say truly, with my hand on my heart, that I wish they have given us more for the prequel trilogy. I'm by far not a prequel hater. I really like the prequel trilogy and I wish they would give us more. So in terms of the health of the line, you know, I think obviously 2024, granted, is, you know, it seems like it's a bit of a poor year. I think a lot of that has got to do with the Skeleton Crew being delayed, because I think if that was at the beginning of the year, we would have got some new figures from there. Whether people wanted them or not, more new tooling would have been spent on the Skeleton Crew. We've got the Acolyte figures. So, you know, in terms of sort of like legacy characters, whether it be from the prequel trilogy or the original trilogy, yes, this year is definitely a famine in that respect. I already know that 2025 is going to be a better year because we are going to be getting some new tooling spent on the original trilogy, which is good. But as I said, that doesn't mean that I want that taken away from anybody else's wants in the community. But as I said, there is a finite budget on what they can do. So yeah, I wish that the TVC community would come together, stop labeling people, stop the sort of, you know, infighting between new media versus original trilogy. We're all in the same community. We all want the same things in terms of the health of the 3 3/4 inch scale figure, which is the heritage scale, the only scale for me. And yeah, that's all I can really say about it, my friend. I hope I've managed to, you know, put my point across on that anyway. Charlie Howard says, just became a channel member. Thank you so much, Charlie. I really appreciate that, buddy. He says, hey BB, question for next week. Are we ever going to see the rest of the Bad Batch in TVC? I have to admit, I'm getting a bit frustrated with Hasbro. Their mentality with TVC seems completely out of touch with us fans, in my opinion. And this, you know, goes back to my previous question. This is how people are feeling in the community. Of course, again, I'm not somebody that does not want the Bad Batch figures. I want them as well. But on last night's live stream with John and Chris, I was talking about Hunter, and, you know, I've said this before about that Hunter figure. I just feel it's pointless giving us the one figure, especially when it's a squad or a team. The Rogue One team is another one. We need Bodhi, we need Baze. You know, what is the point in just giving us Hunter? It's just no point at all. They have to have a plan or a roadmap to get those other figures out there, and I'm pretty sure lots of people are pretty vocal about this now. Hasbro, get yourselves in gear and give us the rest of the Bad Batch, because we need to tick those off as soon as possible. Jesse Perez says, hey boss, question for next week's episode. With the new clone mold for the phase 1 and phase 2 clones, do you think it opens up new figure designs of clone troopers we've seen in shows such as Commander Doom, Clone Trooper Danal, Jet Troopers, maybe other awesome troopers we saw in the show? 100% it opens it up. How long Hasbro will take to actually give us those is another matter. I think they'll probably, you know, concentrate on variations of the different battalions using that mold, simple repaints before they start adding like extra tooling for different helmets and things like that. They might do it quicker, but I think we might have to wait for that sort of thing. But, you know, certainly now that they've got those base buck bodies out there of the clones, you know, anything's possible. Aqualish Doug says, hey BB, question for next week. After watching the first 2 episodes of The Acolyte, which characters do you want most in TVC? And do you think Kelnaka Wookiee Jedi figure would be the basis of a new Chewbacca mold? Well, we did get a pipeline for a Chewbacca where they're going to be updating the lower half of his body and the head, which is great news because, you know, if there's one thing that is wrong with that Chewie, it is the lower half, his swivel hips. So that's going to be updated. So I'm not too sure if we're going to need that now. But in terms of the Acolyte and what figures I want from that show, I don't really know what to make of the show just yet. I've only seen 2 episodes. I thought some of it was pretty good. Some of it is a bit iffy. But most certainly the character that I do want the most from that show is the Wookiee Jedi, Kelnaka, I think his name is. You saw him at the very end of episode 2, spoiler alert if you haven't seen it. And hopefully he's going to be featured in the next episode. They're obviously going to go and find him, which is cool. And yeah, that's definitely one. The other one is the, I don't know her name, I do apologise, but it's the female alien Jedi. I think that's a really cool design. Pretty sure they're getting that in the Black series once again. That's probably one I'll choose. I think she looks pretty interesting. Quadzilla says, HasLab Cantina has been revealed and it comes with a sticker set. Are some of these stickers, in your opinion, clues to future releases and repaints, such as Pelimoto, Gamorrean Guard, Sand Trooper, Max Rebo Band? Do you think they'll also release new versions of creatures such as a Bantha and a Dewback, etc.? Well, one thing I've got to say is that I do really like that sticker sheet. There were certainly some interesting things on there, some really cool designs. I'm not too sure if it gives us any clues about what could be released. I think it's more just like giving you lots of different options of, you know, ways that you can decorate the outside of your cantina. You've got like Imperial stickers, a bit like the war recruitment posters, you know, your country needs you, like the Empire needs you, that kind of thing. Looks pretty cool. You've even got the land speeder seller poster there. There's even the Nikto speeder bike gang sign that they spray on the side of the buildings and things like that. There's obviously the wanted signs for Ponda Baba and Dr. Evazan, which is cool. There's so much on there. I don't know. I think it's just some cool designs. But yeah, I mean, absolutely. I think, you know, if the HasLab gets across the line and we've all got the Cantina in our collections, we already know that they're making the mains for it, which is absolutely brilliant. But yeah, sure, it'd be great if we got a new Luke Speeder or a Dewback, or I don't know, the possibilities are endless. I'm not too sure if Peli Motto and the Gamorrean Guards would necessarily be made off the back of that, but certainly a Sand Trooper there, I could see that happening. Maybe a 4-pack of those would be a really good idea for them to do. This is a good one. Owen Rogers says, question next week, is your wife jealous of you lusting over the new Greedo yet? Seriously, I'm surprised we got Greedo as a stretch goal. Wish he was just a standard release. I would have rather had a never released background alien like the other Duros. Where's Hammerhead? To be released during the return of Tatooine. We have to get him next, right? So yeah, Greedo, I mean, come on, man. He looks great, doesn't he? He looks absolutely fantastic. There's no getting away from it. I mean, it is a serious upgrade on this one that we have, which is the most recent Greedo. Serious update on that one. This one isn't too bad, actually, apart from his soft goods gilet there. But in terms of him being a stretch goal, I can completely understand your point of view on that. I would say that if you are going to release a Cantina in any line, whether it's Lego or, you know, action figures, whatever it might be, Greedo kind of needs to be in there. You know, he's a recognizable character, so I can understand why they've put him in there. But I don't think you need to worry about him not being released outside of the line. I mentioned this before on my overview video. This is the original Kenner card back for Greedo, and they haven't used that in the set. You're getting an exclusive card back in the set, in the HasLab, and they haven't used that image. So I can see them releasing this one to complete the original 96. For those people that collect the original 96 characters on that card back, I'm pretty sure they'll do that. So I don't think we need to worry about that. In terms of Hammerhead, I think the fact that all of this is happening really increases the likelihood that we will get Hammerhead next year. Of course, they've got him in the Black series. As we've mentioned before, they can do like scaling down on these digital sculpts these days, so I can see that happening, a Hammerhead. I think that's a natural progression for next year, but we'll have to wait and see what gets pipelined in the future. One of the greatest names on YouTube, this is Anonymous Apotamus. He says, howdy BB, the videos are always awesome and congrats on the success of the channel. Question for next week, with Hasbro being able to share figure design engineering between the Black Series and TVC, I think the Grand Inquisitor and Reva are examples of this. Why doesn't Hasbro utilise sharing designs and sculpts between scales more to fill the missing gaps in TVC, theoretically without tapping into the new tooling budget? Great candidates that come to mind would be the rest of the Bad Batch and the prequel releases like the new Darth Sidious, Ki-Adi-Mundi and Super Battle Droid just released in the Black Series. Bonus question, what figures from the Black Series would you like scaled down and released in TVC? So yeah, it's an interesting question there. I think there isn't too much cost associated with sharing the digital sculpts and, you know, sculpting a figure like digitally. The tooling costs is from the factory, the molds, they're the bit, you know, the steel tooling, that's what costs the money essentially. And you know, if you're going to be making a smaller version of it, unfortunately they can't just share the tooling on that. So that's where that cost comes in. There's loads of figures that I want from the Black Series scaled down into TVC. I've got one of them standing right in front of you here. This is one of my last remaining Black Series figures. Rio from Solo. This isn't more proof that I'm not just original trilogy. You know, this is a new media film, I guess you could call it, a Disney era film, and I loved some of the characters in Solo. I enjoyed the film, and I would love for them to make Rio in TVC. I think he looks fantastic, so that's one that I'd like them to do. Of course, there's other figures as well. Slave Anakin, recently they got for the Phantom Menace. That's definitely the one that I would love for them to do in the vintage collection. You've got ones like Endor Dress Leia, or Ewok Village Leia if you like. That one was another one that I was quite jealous of in the Black Series, although I feel they could do a better job in the vintage collection with that one. I don't necessarily think you could scale that one down. I think I'd probably want to see some soft goods for that particular layer. So there's loads, man. Kiadi Mundi's another one. I saw him at MCM Comic Con in the cabinet. He looked phenomenal. That's definitely one that they could just scale down and give us in TVC. Kevin Blanco says, question for next week, given the success of HasLab on big projects, do you think Hasbro would ever consider smaller crowdsourced projects like Vader's TIE Fighter will be made if they get some numbers of pre-sales? So I've got to say that I am 100% against this. I think crowdfunding in general is not really a good thing. We've seen a lot of comments recently. You know, I don't think people really appreciate a company of Hasbro size holding on to somebody's money for that long, and you have to wait a year for the thing. That is where we're at with HasLabs at the moment, and they are the bigger items, and you've almost kind of got to stomach that at the end of the day if you want those items. But I think when it comes to, you know, your average vehicle like your Darth Vader's TIE Fighter, they 100% should not be crowdfunded. They should be a bit like what they've done with the E-Wing and the Jabba's Palace playset. If a retailer doesn't want to take these vehicles anymore, if that is the problem, then stick them on your own retailer, which is Hasbro Pulse, and give them to the fan channels. Gavin Pierce says, in regards to the HasLab announcement, were you surprised that there was no specific space for the Cantina band in the base or deluxe version? Or maybe there was and I didn't notice it. Thanks. Love the videos. No, I wasn't actually surprised, to be honest, because in the movie, there was not really an actual bandstand. When they did the filming over here in the UK, they didn't film that part of it with the band. They did that in California, I believe, on a sound stage or whatever, in, you know, just like a mocked up alcove, if you like, from the Cantina. And then when you Google like floor plans for the Cantina, which I'm pretty sure Hasbro would have looked at themselves for the design of it and, you know, what goes where, the band were pretty much playing in one of the alcoves, but just empty. So no seats, no table, nothing like that. Will be a little bit of a disappointment if I can't get all 7 band members in one of those alcoves. It might end up being a bit of a tight squeeze. Yeah, but I would have been surprised if they sort of created this bandstand which didn't exist, basically, and said, you know, this is where you put your band, because then that wouldn't really be accurate to what was actually inside the Cantina, if that makes sense. Darth Zach says, hey BB, congratulations on your YouTube birthday. I've been watching your channel for about a year now, and you have been my #1 source for TVC collecting. Thank you, buddy. He says, question for next week, what type of camera do you use for your review and Q&A videos? Thanks, and I hope you have a great week. All I use, buddy, is a mobile phone. It's an iPhone. I do tend to try and upgrade it every 2 years when the sort of contract runs out to get the latest ones. So it's got like a nice new camera on it, and then my previous one gets given to my wife, and then her phone gets given to my daughter. That's kind of how it works. I always get the new kit and the other stuff gets passed down. But yeah, that's all I use. Nothing too fancy, but I always find that, you know, cameras on phones are very, very good these days. Reckless Deck says, Tim, question for next week. Post Cantina live stream in regards to the return of Tatooine campaign, what do you think that means? An extended focus on A New Hope, or do you think that it means we'll get more Return of the Jedi Jabba related stuff like the Black Series HasLab Rancor reduced to TVC size? It could also mean Phantom Menace, Revenge of the Sith, Book of Boba Fett and Mandalorian related releases. It sounds like this theme is going to take us well into 2025. Please tell us your take on what you think it entails. All of that is possibilities. I think it might be more sort of like A New Hope centric. If I'm honest, that's what I think. I mean, there is an absolute chance they might sort of give you a Peli Motto out of nowhere, but I can't see it happening. I think when they're talking about that return to Tatooine, I think it's going to be more, you know, your Sand Troopers, a Jawa or something. I don't know. Just things like that. Other figures that interact with the Cantina or outside the Cantina. Maybe vehicles. Hopefully a creature, a new Bantha would be... I'll be over the moon with the new Bantha. I could be completely wrong, and you might get that guy, the gunslinger guy, was it Calasan or something, whatever his name was from The Mandalorian, but no, I doubt it. I think it's you know, Star Wars A New Hope. Luke Skywalker says, great video as always, Tim. Thanks for the sneak peek of the collection room. It seems to be filling up pretty quick. You must be secretly hoping the collection slows down. I've been finishing off my Jabba's characters collection and pretty much got all of them except a few. I don't have an Ishi Tib or that frog dog, I think called a Bubo. Question for next week. I know they will probably never release them, but how much would you like to see an Ishi Tib or Bubo? There was an Ishi Tib in Power of the Force, but it's from the Rebel briefing room. He's not the one from Jabba's palace. The Bubo on the secondary market has a ludicrous price tag attached. Are there any other Jabba dudes you would love to see? Very curious what characters you've got on your mind. Looking forward to another 7 years of Boss Bounty. My favourite YouTuber. Thank you, buddy. I appreciate that. Yeah, Ishi Tib, I would love for them to do that. That's one of my most wanted aliens that I would like them to do, purely for the fact that you've mentioned there that they could, tick off 2 or 3 different characters. That race has been seen in a lot of the new media as well. I think there was a New Republic guy in his blue outfit with that alien head. So, obviously we need the one from Jabba's palace and the briefing room as well. So yeah, absolutely, I'd love that. I wish they would do that personally. I can't see them doing the Bubo dog anytime soon. I think we've probably missed the boat on that. Although, like you, I don't own that one and it is ridiculously priced on the secondary market. But yeah, there's still lots of other Jabba's goons that I would like them to do. Of course, we've got ones from the original 96. You've got Amanaman, you've got Barada, and then there's other like human characters like Fozek and things like that they could do. So yeah, plenty still to go for Jabba's palace, but I don't think it's going to be a focus for Hasbro anytime soon. Toys of the Way says, great video as always and congrats on the channel anniversary, Tim. Question for next week: if you could choose one Cantina figure to be repacked and one figure to be redone, which would they be? Yeah, so for a repack it would have to be Ponda Baba, but I'd want them to give us the new head. It needs a larger head, very much like they've done in the Black series. I wouldn't be too bothered about the swivel hips at this point, but the head is definitely something that would need to be done. Does that count as a repack? Slight retool. But then ones that need to be redone, I think first and foremost is the Hammerhead Momar Nadon. That is definitely one we need redone in TVC, and I'm pretty sure they'll get round to it. I think, if the Cantina, backs becomes a thing, then I can certainly see Hammerhead on the horizon. And yeah, with that new Pilot 4-pack with the Duros head, I would hope that they would redo him as well. So there's 2 redos and 1 repack, but slight retool, so I'm cheating a little bit. JDC says, hello BB, congrats on the anniversary. Question for next week: I realise that there are so many characters that we as collectors want made and it takes like 2 years to develop and produce a new figure. That being said, characters from new media that have been in multiple episodes and even multiple shows haven't been made. If I remember correctly, Cobb Vanth has been finally pipelined, but where are Carson Tava and Peli Motto? Both characters are very popular with fans and one would assume Disney, so where are the figures? It just seems that they are in limbo for some reason, like the Bad Batch, and I don't get it. Thanks for what you do. So yeah, both of those characters that you've mentioned there would more than likely require all new tooling. They might be able to get away with Peli Motto with Rose Tico's body, perhaps. I'm not 100% sure about that. But Carson Tava would definitely need an all new body. He's, let's just say, a little bit of a fuller figure than the Luke Skywalker pilot body, for example. So that's kind of the reason why they haven't done them yet, is because they've got other priorities with their new tooling budget, and those two are going to need new tooling. Alright then guys, that's it for this week's episode of Ask Boss Bounty. Thank you so much for watching, and don't forget to leave your questions for next week's episode to keep this series going. I want to thank everybody for watching. Thank you to everybody that watched the live stream last night as well. We had record numbers. I think we hit at one point 442 concurrent watchers, which is just absolutely crazy. So thank you so much. Thank you to my Patreon supporters and channel members as always for supporting the channel. Really do appreciate it. And we shall see you on the next one.